Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Kathy Norris, and I am an iridologist and been an iridologist for about 30 years. But another thing that I like to work with is birth order. And today I'd like to bring you a presentation on birth order of an American president. Now, if you are in this country by now, you know that we have two presidential nominees for uh, our presidency that's going to take place in November. And that would be Kamala Harris, and that would also be Donald J. Trump. So I wanted to do the birth order on them, and this is in no way whatsoever. I absolutely uh, do not have any intent of talking to you about your choice in politics or who you would vote for. This is strictly birth order. And you know what? I don't want it to in any way suggest or sway you into a choice. I want you to understand the birth order of both of these people because I do believe that birth order is very important for us to know and to learn if we want to help our children, if we want to help our grandchildren. And it also helps us to understand our neighbors and our friends and, of course, our family, because we all come from a family. And it just is a better way of understanding personalities, characteristics, different traits according to the position that you were born in. So that is my intent. And with that being said, let's get going on this because I think you're really going to like it. Birth order is psychology. It is a part of psychology. If you take psychology in college, or maybe even if they offer it in some high school levels, you understand from that place of birth order that most of the people come in and talk about or make presentations about a number one child is where the parents learn how to be a parent. By two, they get to be a little bit easier. And by three or four, they're kind of like, this is old news now. But you know what? We don't come along into this world with a set of instructions. The type of birth order that I like to use is one that I think it was advanced by Denny Johnson. And if you study iridology or if you are into IPA iridology, you know that name, Denny Johnson. He formulated some excellent pathways for us to learn more about the eye itself, more about personality iridology. But another thing that he helped really hone in on was birth order. And it is so interesting because it follows the position of 6 boys and 6 girls. Now, in today's time, not many people have 6 children. Some do, some don't. But in the scheme of things, most people have 2 children, 3 children. Some have 4. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how many. If you want 12 kids, have 12 kids. Doesn't matter. But they all have a placement. So that's what we're going to study tonight is the placement of all the children. So by understanding even combination types or single types, we get a greater understanding of that personality. We are going to see a lot of things that can come from just being in the first birth order position if you are born a girl. Same if you're born a boy. Now, when I work with people, I love to do birth order in part of their session that I have with them, but it's not 100%. But I will tell you this, I believe that it is about 80% spot on. Now, in some cases, it is 100%. When I start talking about the structure of the family and how the children are born, it is absolutely spot on. Sometimes it may be a little bit off, but then that's when you have to consider astrological signs. You want to consider if there's families that merge together. So if we have the death of a parent and the mother remarries, and she happens to remarry a gentleman that has 2 or 3 kids, what is that blended family going to look like, and how do you read it from that point? Environment, absolutely. Cultural influence, absolutely. All of those are factors into understanding birth order. But I'm going to get into basic birth order, and then we're going to go into our candidates. So in understanding girls and the boys, like I said before, we look at 6 patterns of girls, we look at 6 patterns of boys. Now, what is very important to keep in mind is that this all is based, every bit of birth order is based on the children of the father, not so much the mother. The mother is important, but we want to focus on the father. And why is that? Because father carries the seed of the child. For 9 months, the mom's just an incubator. She's an important incubator because she actually gives life to that being. She brings that all together. But when we count the children come from the father, and he can have many. In his lifetime, he can have many children. Now, let's talk about this for just a second. If the father's child, the father and the mother have children, and she's a girl, we just refer to her simply as a one girl. Would be the same if they had a son, one boy. Every child, though, that follows that little girl, she's the firstborn. Every child that follows behind there, we are going to put her in a birth order position of a girl. Now, let's just say, for example, we've got Mary. She's a one girl. She was born first. We have a little boy that comes behind Mary, and he is referred to as a 2 girl, 1 boy. Now, he's in the placement of a 2 girl. That's all. We're not saying that any way whatsoever John is a little girl. We're not saying that because he's actually born a male. That is his second position. So he is a 2 girl, 1 boy. So we're talking about his placement and then his sex. Okay? It's very simple. He becomes a combination. This all has structure and a pattern and characteristics that flow with it. Okay, let's look at the boy side. So if the father's first child is a boy, he's very simple. We would refer to him as a 1 boy. Now let's say that the second child born behind that little boy is a girl. We're just going to flip-flop it here. She's going to be called a 2 boy, 1 girl. So you see the 2B, 1G in parentheses there. Now, let's add a 3rd girl to this. What is she going to be? She's in the 3rd position behind a boy, so she's a 3B. 3B lets you know she's the 3rd in line, and the first child that she's born under is a boy, but she's the 2nd girl. So we have a 3B, 2G. Okay, still pretty simple. So we say that the sex of the firstborn sets the pattern for all those others to fall into that position. This is going to be a personality influence. Pretty simple. Let's talk about the parents. Like I said, the father has a very huge role for his children and how they are placed, because he could have somebody else on the side and have another child. And he could also have somebody else on the side and have another child. A father can have many children through the year, but a woman can only carry a baby for 9 months. So she's only limited to 1 or 2 children a year. That's how we count this. Now, if there's multiple children from the fathers and there are several mothers involved, this is where birth order gets a little tricky. And some people, even fathers, have no idea that they may have a child out there, but that child is still a part of that pattern just because of the father. Now, the 6 girls, when we talk about 6 girls, we're talking about girl 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She has a base personality. Now, if you had six daughters, this would be a piece of cake. You have six single personalities that you would work with. Some people have six daughters. Some people have six sons. There again, you have those singles. When you intermingle and you bring a boy and a girl and a boy and a girl and a boy and a girl, that's where you're going to get those combinations. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of these combinations. I'm not going to go into all of them because this would end up being rather more of a 2 to 3 hour class than just a 30-minute talk about presidential candidates. Now, I'm just going to give you another example. Bob and Julie have 3 kids. Megan is the first. Okay, one girl, easy. Jennifer is born behind Megan. She's a 2 girl. Again, that's very, very easy. Now, little boy comes along. He's in that 3 girl position, meaning he is the 3rd child behind an older sister. Megan is his oldest sister. She set the sex for them to follow. But he is a one boy. He's the first son. One boy. We got that. Now, Bob and Julie decide to get a divorce, and Bob marries Becky. So he's going to have children with Becky. And along comes little Michael. Well, we don't start over again at 1 just because we've got a new mom. We're looking at the father's side. Okay, we're looking at his children. Not Julie's kids, not Becky's kids, but we're looking at Bob's kids. So he has a 4th child out there. Michael is his 4th child. He follows in that 4 pattern because Megan is still the oldest of Bob's children. She's the firstborn. But Michael's the 2nd son. So we're in a 4 girl, 2 boy position. We write that out as 4G, 2B. Now, Kevin comes behind Michael. He's the 5th child. He's Bob's 5th child, still born behind a girl. Okay. Megan is still the oldest firstborn child of Bob. 5G, 3B, because he's 3rd son. Okay. That is as hard and as complicated as it's going to get from here on out. It does get more complicated, but then again, we're not going to go there. Now we're going to talk about our contenders tonight, and that's going to be Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Okay, let's start with Kamala Harris. Kamala, her parents are Donald J. Harris and Shyamala Gopalan. Okay, now they divorced in 1972. Kamala is a 1 girl. She has a sister behind her, Maya. It's pretty simple. 1 girl, 2 girl. There's nobody else. So this is going to be a pretty easy read. Now, once I got to studying and kind of digging in and doing some research, I found out that Kamala Harris's mother, she was a very prominent cancer researcher who did a lot of research on the hormone progesterone and how it works in breast health. I found that to be really fascinating. She passed away in 2009. And then again, we have Kamala's father, who is a professor at Stanford. Now he's retired, of course, but he may have been passed. I don't recall if I found that information or not. But the 2 parents divorced when Kamala was 5. Now, there you go. That can be a cultural influence. That can be an environmental influence. Depending on how it affected her. Okay. I don't know that it did. I don't know that it didn't because I don't know her personally. I'm going to talk about her from a 1 girl standpoint. So here's a few pictures. The picture on the left, we see her parents. The little picture in the middle, we see her with her little sister, Maya. The picture on the right, we see her with her husband and his 2 children from a previous marriage. Now, let's talk about that 1 girl position. She is a 1 girl. 1 girls are just very strong and determined. They come into the world this way. They are anchored to Mother Earth. They are grounded. A lot of them are just super strong. And when they start out that way young, they will grow to be a very strong and determined woman. They tend to stay more connected to father's side of the family. And there's times that they may remind someone of father's mother, their their paternal grandmother. There could be a lot of similarity between that number one girl and the father's mother. Now, a lot of times children might not know their grandparents. The father himself may not know his own mother. Maybe she passed when he was a young boy and he really does not know this. This girl helps to keep that woman's spirit alive because she is almost so connected to that paternal grandmother that, it blows some people away when they pay attention to it. So there's a lot of father's family in that firstborn girl. Now, a lot of times, and I'm a firstborn girl too, so I can very well understand this position. That little girl, she may be very bossy. She also may be very direct with her father. She might grab his face and say, "Now, Daddy, I want you to listen to me when I talk to you." The number one girl could also be a caretaker of other children. She might really pitch in and help take care of the youngest if more children come along. That's just one of the things that she just naturally is in tune with, is kind of that caretaker nurturing position. So one of the things that is fascinating about that one girl is she keeps the family together, and she's always concerned about the family. And she is very much a natural nurturer, but she loves to feed the family. Now, when you think about that, you look at a 4-year-old, you think, well, she can't feed the family. She's too young. She may pretend there for a while that she likes to cook, or she's pouring tea for someone, or maybe she likes to have tea parties with daddy as a youngster. But you may find that this child wants to enter the kitchen and help make cookies or help bake a cake, or can I help set the table? I want to do my part as well. And then again, she could be very controlling of her mom and try to overrule mom a lot of times and say, I know better. Well, at 4, she really doesn't know better. She's just trying to flaunt her authority at that point. She wants to show mom that she's probably going to be the boss. And what's so funny about that is the father is so important with that number one girl that he is the one that can tame that situation. Okay. So we know that with that number one little girl, we tend to have a little mother. Okay. She wants to mother everybody. When father, and it's a good piece of advice to follow, but when father comes home from work, one of the best things he can do is address the mother first, hug, kiss, love the mother, say how glad he is to see her, and then turn his attention to that number one girl. If it flip-flops and he comes in and he addresses the child first, you're teaching the child that she is now the queen and no longer the princess. And then mom takes that princess part. So we have a hierarchy that the child is now in charge of mother. It's not always the best thing to do, but fathers are the best influence from that. Okay. So we know that the one girl, she can actually be physically strong. She could have a lot of muscle tone and a lot of power. She could be very mentally sharp and quick, could be very quick-witted. She could be very strong-willed, but she's always going to work, even as she ages, to keep that family unit together. And if there's any sense that there could be a breakup or there could be an argument between the parents, she may try to come in and mend that. She may say, look, guys, come on. Don't argue. Don't argue anymore. Please don't raise your voice. It hurts my feelings when you do that. This is just a natural position for that one girl. Now, as she ages, she may become very wise in young years because she's watching, she's observing. Kids watch. It's like they've got another set of eyes that they're paying attention to you with while they're watching everything else. Sometimes you think they're watching cartoons, they're watching you. But anyways, let's look at this as it is. The number one girl, as she grows and she matures, other family members will look at her and say, she's the keeper of the family secrets. Even if she has children of her own and grandchildren, she still knows what happened a long time ago. And she is the one that can pass those stories down. So she's very much large and in charge, if you will. Okay. Let's talk about Donald J. Trump. Let's look at his parents. Let's look at where he came from. When we look at his parents, he has Fred Trump, who is his father, who passed away in 99. Everybody knows that he was a real estate tycoon. He was a land developer. He built many businesses in New York. He married a woman by the name of Marianne McLeod, and she came from Scotland. And when she got here, she was about 17 years old. And she went to live with her older sister, who was already here and married. And she wanted to fit in. So she took a job, and she took a job as a housekeeper within a hotel. After she married Fred, she didn't have to work anymore. Everything was pretty easy for her at that point. She passed away in 2000. When we look at the birth order of all the Trump children, we have Marianne Trump, we have Fred Trump Jr., we have Elizabeth Trump, we have Donald J. Trump, and then we have Robert Trump. So we've got 5 children. So this is the exact birth order position. So let's look a little bit deeper. I've already told you about Fred, told you about Marianne. She was a homemaker. She took care of a lot of things that went on in the home. Now, Marianne, the oldest, became a federal judge in New York. Brother Fred was a TWA pilot. He was also the first child to pass away. Elizabeth was an administrator for the Chase Manhattan Bank. So she worked there in New York as well. We know that Donald got into real estate. He inherited that family business and went on to build other businesses right on top of that, and really became a success. And then Robert, the younger brother, he was also an investor into other things, but he was also a manager within the family business. So you know what, when you look at this and you say, my gosh, these kids by rights were millionaires at a young age because of what their dad had and what their dad was going to leave them. All 5 of them went to work. I mean, they didn't just sit back and wait for things to be handed to them. They stepped outside of that family and they actually went to work. So, I commend them for that, because you hear a lot of stories, millionaire children that don't work. Well, they do. They really do. Now, here's a picture. I found this. I think it's really a cool little picture. So we see Donald on the left. There's Fred. There's Robert. We see the oldest daughter, Marianne, and then we have Elizabeth. Nice picture. And here they're adults now. We have Donald on the left. We have Elizabeth. We've got Fred there in the middle. Like I said, he's the first one that passed away. We have Robert, and then we have Marianne, who became the judge. Now, let's talk about Donald Trump's position. He is the 4th child born behind a girl. Okay, his older sister, Marianne, set that pattern for him to be in that 4-girl placement. But he is the 2nd son. So he's a 2B, 4G, 2B. He's a combination. Now let's look at that 4-girl position. That position has a lot to do with change. One of the ways that we describe her as a 4-girl is we call her the gypsy, because things are always changing. And that's what she's about. She can't do without change. Okay. Things have to change for her to fit in. Okay. So you will see girls go through this position. You'll see boys born into that fourth position, that fourth girl position. And that's what they are. They might change their mind. They might change the way that they wear their clothes. They may change their beliefs. So maybe they belong to one belief system and they just like, you know what, that's not working for me. I think I'm going to go check this out, see if that belief system works for me. They might change their hairstyles very often. Maybe they buy a new car every year, you know, change, change, change. Maybe they move quite often. Some people do that, some people don't. But this fourth girl position she may be very inclined to do that. Now, also in that fourth girl position, they can turn their thoughts very inward and think. Okay. They may show their emotion when necessary. If they're angry, if they get cross with you, they might snap at you. But most of the time, they're living on the inside. And if it gets out of hand and the fourth child is not brought out of their shell, they may recluse. They may go in and say, you know what, this feels comfortable for me to stay right here. I don't need to share myself with anybody. I'm quite happy like I am. That could be a possibility with this position. Now, when we talk about the 4G position, 4-girl position, they tend to challenge authority. And I'll tell you about this because I have this in my own family. They may take old rules, old ideas, old thoughts, old outdated systems and say, you know what? That didn't work then. It's not going to work now. Let's change it up. Let's bring some new life into it. Let's dress it up and help it look another way. Let's put another coat of paint on it, see what happens. Because they're about change. Okay. Now, this can be a good thing if you want it. If you don't, it's not a good thing. But it also could be a good thing if you need it. Okay. So there's that change that keeps coming in. The 4G position makes people think. They might say something that is just totally off the wall, and you go, what? I never thought about it that way. Let me think about it. And you know what? That's the kind of person that just makes people stop in their tracks and go, that might work. Might not, but it might. Let me think about it. They are going to also take their thoughts, their influence, their power, their control. They're going to take it out into the world. Okay. They take it past their own community. 1s and 2 children usually stick pretty close to home. 3s and 4s carry it out into the community. And when they see they can go further with it, by all means, they carry it further. Their ideas, their influence, whatever it is that they want to bring change to. So I'm going to tell you about my 4-girl. I have a niece that's in this 4-girl position. She's actually 4-girl, 3-girl. What that means is she's the 4th child. The oldest child is a girl, but she's the 3rd daughter. Okay. That position is a push me, pull you kind of thing. She is all about change. She is all about doing something different. She was the child in the family that throws things out and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that, because they sometimes do these things and they're just looking for a reaction, just to make you think about what you said, make you think about the rules that you have in place. But that 3-girl position with my niece, it is specially devoted around nurture of animals. They are lover of animals. They are lovers of the earth. They take their influence in that 3-girl position and they move that into the community. They become teachers. They become vet techs, vets, animal walkers, anything that they can do to be around those animals. And they love those animals. I think more than any other pattern that I see, because those animals love them back unconditionally. And they know that people are not going to do that all the time. But they have that rock solid belief that an animal will always love them, warts and all, no matter what, they're going to love them. So that's about the three girl. I digress there. But that 4G position, my sweet little niece, she fits that to a T. So I see that coming out in her 100%. 100%. Now let's talk about that two boy, because now Donald Trump is the second born son. That second born son, he comes in and he is so connected to his daddy that that's about all he can see. He absolutely will love his dad. He will do everything he can to stay in his father's view. Okay. On the physical side, he could be very, very strong, like that one girl. He could be a little on the emotional side as well. He's got a lot of courage. He tends to be the one that is the little daredevil, if you will. You know, he can run farther and jump higher than anyone else, and he's not afraid to show you that he can back that up. And sometimes we refer to that little fella as a bull in a china shop. He's kind of reckless. He just haphazardly goes through life, and he may be a little pushy and a little angry and gruff from time to time, but you know what? That's just who he is. Now, he's always looking for dad to show him something, approve something he's doing, give him kudos when he's not getting it from anybody else. He wants to make sure dad's got his eyes on him. He's going to do anything he can to get that attention. And he's very masculine too. That two boy, he's all, you hear the term all boy, he's all boy. The two boy is all boy. It's very, very important. Just like I said about the father paying attention to that one girl, pay attention to mother first and then the daughter, or you throw things out of balance. With the two boy, it's very important that fathers, when they are talking to their sons, if they need to scold that boy or if they need to redirect him, look him eye in eye. Keep eye to eye contact with that boy. If he wanders away and he looks this way and he looks that way, direct his face gently back to your eyes, because he will sense that's where the truth is coming from. Now, it's also very important that if a father, if he treats the mother with disrespect, this two boy will also treat the mother with disrespect. If this young man witnesses father treating his friends in a bad way, treating animals in a bad way, treating women or girls, females, in a bad way, or treating his own mother that way, the boy will think it's okay because dad did it too. That's the influence. That is a serious, serious influence. So it is extremely important. I tell you this as a parent. Your two boy has got his feelers out all the time watching dad, because he's going to emulate dad in every way he can. Now, we want to take this little two boy because he's going to come into this world with a lot of energy. And we want to direct that in the most positive way that we possibly can. And if that means putting him out on a soccer pitch and letting him run and kick a ball all day long, let him do it. If he wants to throw the ball and catch the ball and ride the bicycle and swim and do all these sports things, that helps him get his aggression out. But then again, if that parent works with him, keeps him focused, keeps him on the pathway of positivity, he'll be able to channel that, and you're probably going to see a good athlete come out of him, one that is respectful even when he loses, if you stay positive with him. So it's very, very important, the male influence. If there is no father in the home, it is very important that there is a positive male role model for this little boy to pay attention to. So it could be an uncle, it could be a grandfather, it could be a stepfather come into play. He will need to guide this little fellow with a lot of love and a lot of positivity. Okay. So the young two boy, like I said, he's constantly watching. He's got his feelers out. You need to be as truthful and honest with this little guy as you possibly can. Now, when we look at what Kamala Harris brings to the table and we look at what Donald Trump brings to the table, they both have very dominating traits as leaders and then again as business people. They didn't get to the power that they got to or the place that they got to by just sitting around. They're both very, very successful. Ever before they ever went to Washington, D.C., they were very successful. And when we look too at their parents, and I love this, when we look at Kamala's parents and we look at Donald's parents, both sets of parents, immigrants, they came to the U.S. to capture that American spirit and catch that dream. They both parents, both sides, envisioned a better life than what they would have from where they were originally born. And that takes a lot of guts. That takes a lot of guts to leave your home country, go to another country, and actually succeed. That's a big deal. So when we look at both of these people, we see that we have two individuals that look back at their parents and credit their parents for their successes. And you know what? I believe that's absolutely true. No matter what we think about them, no matter what we feel about them, we see this similarity in both of them. And the fact that they credit their parents, I think that's wonderful. I love that. So when we're talking about birth order, and I can see some of these changes that they bring, both of these people, they bring their characteristics. Each one of them has their idea of success. They have their strengths. It is so important that we understand those strengths to better understand that person. Now, my hope, of course, is that when you start working with birth order, that you learn from your own family, the children that you came from, your own siblings. But I hope you apply that to your children that you have. If you don't have any children, look at your nieces and nephews. I don't have any children, but I was very, very close and kept a pulse on my nieces and nephews as they grew up, and I was very close at hand and was still am very close. They're grown children now, but I'm still very, very close to them. It is important, I believe, that we do learn these birth order positions because you are only helping that child reach their full potential as they become an adult. And you know what? I think that's what every parent wants. They want their child to succeed in every way possible. You never hear a parent sit back and say, well, I hope he becomes nothing. They don't do that. That's not what parents do. So I hope that you understand a little bit more about birth order. I hope that this is something that you find intriguing enough to take a class on. I teach this at a very simple level, and I can teach this at a very extensive level where I help people work with oils and understand a little bit more about the personality on a deeper level, but also use essential oils to keep that characteristic, keep that personality in a positive direction rather than a negative direction. So I know we all kind of drift off and we get a little negative from time to time, but you know what? It's important that we get back on track and we stay true to who we were supposed to be. So with that, I will leave you, and I hope that you got something out of that. Like I said, I don't care who you choose, doesn't matter. I just was happy to bring this information to you and put this in your lap. So, with that, I thank you for watching. I hope you'll pay attention again. And the next time I do a birth order class, and maybe you can join it and learn a little bit more. So, thanks so much.